One late winter day, Keanu Reeves, a famous actor, was on his way back to his small apartment in New York. He chooses to walk to enjoy the atmosphere of the city, instead of going by private car or having an entourage with him. That day, the sky in New York was grey, and the weak sunlight was shining through the skyscrapers. The streets were bustling, but everyone was in a hurry, wrapped up in their work at the end of the day. The air was cold. Each person's breath rose like a thin wisp of smoke. It hadn't snowed yet, but the cold had numbed the bare hands of the homeless people huddled on the street corners. He wore a long black coat, a grey scarf, and a simple wool hat. With that appearance, Keanu was no different from a normal man walking in the middle of the city. He chose to eat a shortcut through the old quarter to avoid the crowds and have some quiet time before going home. The small street he passed through had few people passing by. On both sides of the street were old buildings. The windows of some apartments emitted warm light. The scent from a nearby restaurant wafted out, mixed with the cold smell of metal in the air, making Keanu feel a little peaceful. During that quiet space, a small sound entered his ears. It was a weak meow, echoing from a hidden corner in a nearby alley. Keanu stopped and tilted his head to listen. The meow sounded again, this time clearer, like a cry for help in the darkness. He looked around but saw no one else. There were only dim streetlights and deep darkness in the small alley. Keanu's footsteps led him to the source of the sound. The alley corner was damp, with piles of trash and old, broken cardboard boxes lying around. A small, dark grey cat was curled up in a torn cardboard box. The cat was skinny. Its fur was disheveled. Its left leg was trembling. A small wound was exposed, and its pale yellow eyes looked at him fearfully. The cold wind blew. Its small ears trembled. That pitiful meow seemed to contain all the pain and fear of a small, forgotten creature. Keanu sat down, his eyes gentle but full of worry. He knew that if he left the cat here, in the cold of the winter night, its chances of survival were very low. But he didn't want to scare the cat either. He took off his scarf and gently placed it on the ground near the cat as a reassurance. At first, the cat sniffed, not daring to come closer. But then, as if sensing the safety of the man in front of him, it slowly walked towards him, rubbing against his hand. Keanu looked at the cat, a strange feeling rising in his heart. He had lost loved ones and had experienced extreme loneliness. This little cat, like him, was probably just looking for a little warmth, a little comfort in the cold world. He carefully picked the cat up, feeling the thin, trembling body in his arms. "We'll be okay, little friend," he said, his voice gentle, as if talking to an old friend. Keanu Reeves carried the kitten out of the alley, feeling the lightness in its thin body. The cat was trembling, its fur rubbing against his hand, its yellow eyes wide open, looking at him with trust. But Keanu couldn't leave the cat in this state any longer. He realized the wound on the cat's leg was already bleeding, but it needed medical attention. He walked faster, his sense of responsibility growing in his heart. The streets of New York were still crowded, people rushing past each other like hurried shadows. Keanu walked into a nearby pharmacy, asking the clerk where he could find a veterinary clinic. The woman behind the counter didn't recognize him at first, but when she looked closely, she was slightly surprised, her eyes lighting up. "Are you Keanu Reeves?" she asked, her voice a mixture of surprise and admiration. Keanu smiled slightly, but instead of answering directly, he gave the kitten for her to see. "I need help with this cat. Do you know of a vet clinic nearby?" The woman looked at the cat with sympathy, then directed Keanu to a clinic about 2 streets away. "Take the cat there. I'm sure they'll help," she said. Thanking her, Keanu stepped outside and quickly headed towards the vet clinic. The little cat in his arm meowed softly, the meowing now weaker, as if it was tired from enduring the cold and pain all day. Keanu could feel its weak heartbeat, and that made him walk even faster, filled with worry. When he arrived at the clinic, Keanu quickly explained the situation to the receptionist. At first, the girl at the counter didn't seem to recognize him, but upon closer inspection, confusion flashed in her eyes. However, she didn't let her surprise distract her, quickly leading Keanu and the cat into the clinic. The veterinarian, a middle-aged woman with a kind face, greeted Keanu with professionalism. As she took the cat from him, her eyes were filled with concern. "This cat has suffered a lot," she said after a brief examination. "We will take care of it, but it needs a safe place after it leaves here. Do you have a plan?" Keanu, without thinking long, replied immediately, "I'll take him home and take care of him." While waiting, Keanu sat in the waiting chair at the clinic, scanning the room, filled with animal welfare posters. A few people recognized him, but no one came near to bother him. They just whispered to each other, their eyes curious, but also filled with admiration. Keanu, as always, remained calm, focused on the more important thing. The little cat need being treated. After waiting for a while, the doctor came out with a small smile on his face. "We cleaned the wound, bandaged it, and gave it fluids. He'll need some monitoring, but I think he'll be fine. He's a little warrior." Keanu thanked the doctor and asked about the next steps in caring for the cat. He bought all the necessary supplies from the clinic: cat food, a care kit, and even a small transport bag. He also didn't forget to ask about common diseases in stray cats, so he could be more prepared. As he left the clinic, Keanu felt a little lighter. He looked at the kitten, now wrapped in a soft towel, lying peacefully in the carrier. Although the cat was still weak, its eyes were brighter, as if it knew it had found a trustworthy friend. He didn't rush home right away. Instead, Keanu walked to a nearby pet store to buy a small bed, some toys, and even a scratching post. Everything he thought a cat needed to feel comfortable. As he walked out of the store, he noticed that the sky had begun to sprinkle the first snowflakes. He looked up, smiling as a warm feeling spread through his heart. To Keanu, this action was not a big deal, but he understood that, no matter how small, it could make a big difference in the life of a small creature. And that, to him, is what kindness means. When he got home, Keanu Reeves gently placed the cat in a cozy corner. Then, he prepared for it. Small bed with a soft lining was neatly placed in the corner of the living room, next to the fireplace, next to a bowl of clean water and some kibble. The cat gingerly stepped out of the carrier bag, its little legs trembling but full of curiosity. Seeing the cat begin to explore the new space, Keanu felt a gentle joy spread. The cat, now having a safe place to call home, no longer looked as scared as when he found it in the cold alley. He decided to name the cat Shadow, a name that evoked the darkness where it had lived, but also symbolized the strength to rise from adversity. The next day, Keanu spent the morning playing with Shadow, helping it get used to its new home. He read more about cat care, called the vet to ask about the next steps of care, and even started rearranging part of his schedule to make sure he could be with Shadow during those important first days. Over time, Shadow became accustomed to the whole new environment. Its small footsteps echoed on the wooden floor as it ran after the toys. The soft-furred kitten was no longer as shy as it was at first. When Shadow was first in the early days, it would simply sit silently in a corner of the room, its eyes carefully monitoring everything that was going on around it. However, at this point, its meow grew more distinct and powerful, as if it wanted to express its happiness at being loved. Keanu devoted a significant amount of his time to providing care and solace to Shadow. Quite frequently, he would sit next to it, either reading books or conversing softly with it, telling it little tales about his life. As a sign of his contentment, Shadow would always be found curled up on the sofa next to Keanu, with his eyes half closed. It would occasionally bend forward and rub its cheek against his fingers, nearly as if it were expressing gratitude to the person who had spared it. In addition, Keanu saw that ever since Shadow had arrived, his home had been significantly cozier and far more active. In particular, his laughter became more frequent whenever Shadow engaged in some naughty. Over the subsequent months, their lives evolved into a succession of warm routines. Keanu awoke to find Shadow sleeping on the bed, sometimes on his chest, with his eyes wide open, anticipating breakfast. Shadow was waiting for Keanu to provide it with food. In the meantime, he made a cup of coffee for himself and then prepared some food for Shadow. Shadow would frequently lie calmly at the foot of the chair at the same time as he was working, acting as a devoted companion. One day, when he took Shadow to the veterinarian informed him that Shadow's health had improved. Shadow's eyes had become less melancholy than they had been before, and his fur had achieved a shining appearance. When Keanu realized that his attempts to take care of him had been successful, he felt a nice feeling somewhere within him. Keanu and Shadow's connection became more intimate as time went on, and it further developed. His ability to set aside his stresses and concerns is facilitated by the tranquil moments he shares with Shadow, which also serve to remind him of what it means to be fully present in the moment. Shadow also becomes an indispensable part of Keanu's private moments. When he sits down to read a script or rehearse a role, Shadow often jumps up on the table, lies down, and looks at him with curious eyes. Once, it even jumped into his lap while he was deep in thought, making him unable to hold back his laughter. To Keanu, Shadow is more than just a cat he saved. It is a reminder that, even in a world full of chaos and challenges, kindness and compassion still have a place. Every time he looks at Shadow, he is reminded that in a world full of challenges, kindness is always a worthwhile thing. One day, while walking around the park with Shadow, Keanu came across a family trying to find a way to get a small cat stuck in a tree branch down. Without hesitation, he went to help. With skill and patience, he brought the cat safely to the ground. The family thanked him profusely, but Keanu just smiled, petted the cat, and said that he understood the feeling of a lost cat because he had witnessed it through Shadow. Since saving Shadow, Keanu felt that his life had become more meaningful, not because he had done something great, but because he realized that small actions can make a big difference. Shadow is a living proof of that. From a weak, scared cat, it has now become a healthy, happy, and energetic cat. As a result, not only did Shadow gain a new life, but we also learned a meaningful lesson from this story. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, can make a profound difference in the life of someone or a living creature around us. The story of Keanu Reeves and Shadow is more than just a simple act of help. It reflects a profound message of compassion and kindness in this busy and rushed world. While people around him are often caught up in the whirlwind of work, fame, and personal worries, Keanu is different. He not only cares for those closest to him, but also does not hesitate to share kindness with the smallest creatures. Creatures that cannot cry for help and cannot protect themselves. Keanu did it not for recognition or honor, but simply because he felt that it was the right thing to do. He did not hesitate to give his time, care, and love to a creature that very few people pay attention to. Kindness doesn't have to be grand. A small act, like helping a cat, can change the life of not only the animal, but also the person who did it. This act has made many of us look at ourselves and wonder if we care enough for the people around us, or even for the little creatures we sometimes overlook. Through this story, Keanu also helps us realize the importance of protecting animals. Shadow's story is not only a message of kindness, but also a call for responsibility of each person towards the weaker creatures in society. By taking Shadow into his arms, Keanu sent a strong message that animals also deserve to be loved, cared for, and protected. Keanu not only saved a cat, but he also devoted his care and time to helping Shadow integrate into a new life. He not only saved the cat in that moment, but also brought a long life, full of love. This action is not a short moment, but a long-term commitment, from taking care of the cat's health to spending time sharing happy moments with it. Keanu's kindness to Shadow not only gave the cat a new life, but also created a huge humanitarian wave. This also makes us look back and reflect on how we treat animals and the small lives around us. Have you ever overlooked an animal in need? Maybe it was a stray dog on the street, a tired cat looking for shelter, or another animal calling for help, but you hastily ignored it. In life, sometimes we may not realize it, but every encounter with a creature in need can be an opportunity to change a life. So in the future, if you encounter such a situation, take a moment to stop. It may just be a small act of reaching out to help them, but it can be a big act for that creature, no matter how small it is to you. From this story, let's also do kind acts together. Even helping a small animal can change their lives and our own. Thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it. Please share your stories of kindness in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and follow us for more great videos. Hope to see you again.